Thanks for joining us, everyone. We have a wonderful guest today. His name is Zak Williams. He's the son of the late Robin Williams, comedic genius, and he is very passionate about mental health and substance use disorder and talking about it and reducing stigma. And he's not just passionate about it. He's also the CEO and founder of an anxiety relief company, PYM. He is very, very involved. He is a U.S. trustee of the international advocacy organization United for Global Mental Health. He is a board member of mental health awareness nonprofit Bring Change to Mind and an advisor to national policy organization Inseparable and the mental health tech platform Project Healthy Minds. I do not know when he sleeps, but with no further ado, I would like to welcome Zak Williams to the podcast, and I hope you guys will get a lot out of this. I know I did. Thanks. Zak, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I know you're so busy. I actually hunted you down email after email. You finally said yes, so thank you so much. Welcome to the You Learn, You Turn podcast.
Hey, thank you so much for having me today. It's a pleasure to connect, and I really appreciate your passion and your focus around mental health and recovery, and conversations around that are really important to me. So I'm glad we could be speaking today.
Wonderful. Yeah, the more we talk about it, the less stigmatized it is. And, you know, in my family growing up, we really didn't discuss mental health. Did you guys discuss that in your family, mental health and what it looked like? And
we did discuss it, but not in a way that you would consider an everyday thing. You know, this is not something that I would say was a priority for me up until, honestly, my 30s. You know, it's just something I thought, oh, you know, you have mental health considerations, whether it's OCD or anxiety or self-medicating, trauma, what have you. It's just something you just deal with. And maybe you get therapy, maybe you see a doctor and get meds, but what I realized over time is that for most people, the solutions that they think of first are potentially not the best solutions for them, because there's just not a wide array of awareness around everything that's available for people to get the best sources of support that they need, that works best for them, that's precision oriented. So
can we back up a minute to your childhood? Because one of the things that, listening to your other interviews, you talking about OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and were you diagnosed with that as a child, or did you just know, hey, this has got to be organized? Or you said symmetry and counting.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Yeah, that's something that helped me feel calm and comforted, especially going to sleep at night. I just would spin through cycles in my head, and until I completed certain tasks, those cycles would continue bothering me. For anyone listening, if you have OCD, not only do I empathize with you, but I learned how to manage it through taking a step back and actually establishing exercises to help me realize that you can get out of your head. And there's other things that you can do to help manage OCD, but coinciding with this, I also sort of grew out of it. But I do want to caveat that with the fact that, through my teens and the like, I started using things like alcohol and the like to manage obsessive thinking. So it's not something like, it didn't happen like I just woke up one morning and it was gone. It was a progressive thing. And I still have obsessive thoughts. I still think in certain ways, but it's lessened over time.
I have, I don't know if it's a disorder. I haven't really done a whole lot of research into it, but the obsessive thinking, I can take myself down a rabbit hole real quick with that. And when I look back over my life after hearing you talk about counting and everything, I think it is just a way to control what we can't control, right? So, like my mind, if I get a rash and I start thinking, oh, it's XYZ, I look it up on WebMD, and then I go down the rabbit hole of, oh my God, listen, by the end of the week, I have every cancer you can have. I have the rash has grown because I've actually made it grow by scratching it. Is that kind of the way you felt? And when I drank alcohol for the first time, it was like, thank you. Here it is. I feel okay. I feel normal, and the anxious thoughts are calmed down. Was it kind of like that with you with alcohol?
Sort of. First off, to go to your statement around the rash and thinking about health considerations, there is obsessive thinking associated with that. There is also a situation or a condition called hypochondria, which can contribute to it.
Yeah.
And then there's all these different mental health conditions or diagnoses, whether it's Munchausen syndrome, which is obsessively thinking about your mental health not mental health diagnosis, health diagnoses. And I want to make sure I get this right. Or deliberately producing symptoms or illnesses. That's not directly related to your statement, but it's associated with it, so a lot of this relates to obsessive thinking.
Yeah.
I had a similar thing regarding health situations that actually for me happened after September 11th. After I experienced the traumas associated with living in New York as an 18-year-old.
Were you there?
Yeah, I was a freshman in college. I
Wow.
was a freshman at New York University, and experiencing that for whatever reason, first off, I had some health conditions that came from it. Primarily just felt really sick and weak for a period of months afterward.
Mm-hmm.
But then for several years after that, I just thought that something was wrong with me health-wise for years. And a large part of that was being hypochondriac around certain things. That said, for whatever reason, that dissipated over time too. I started worrying less. I think also when I actually started experiencing health conditions primarily related to drinking heavily, that's when I started to realize, all these imagined conditions I had weren't really the issue. It's when I actually had the health condition. I was like, oh, wow, I'm actually experiencing, elevated enzyme levels and, high cholesterol and, all these things that come with drinking alcoholically. That's when I started realizing, oh, wow, you can actually develop health conditions from mistreating your body at a reasonably young age. I started having health issues relating to alcoholism in my 30s.
When do you think you began to drink alcoholically, meaning like every day, or you felt like your life was unmanageable, I guess?
To be honest.
Be honest.
Well, yeah, of course. This was something that was, problem drinking and abusing alcohol was something that happened as soon as I started drinking.
Same. Yeah.
Basically. But I would say seeing the progression of alcoholism really start to take hold was in my 30s.
Okay.
You
Did you
know,
have kids? You didn't have kids. You were single or okay.
No. I was in a previous marriage. But everyday drinking or drinking most days was something that I always did, and I felt was culturally acceptable. Then that transitioned to drinking socially and enjoying that, to being, the wasted guy at an event, to wanting to go home so I would no longer be the wasted guy at an event, and show that I could drink casually and socially amongst peers and friends, and then go home and drink alcoholically. And
we've all done that. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I thought, everybody drinks like this, but in talking to friends and the like, it turns out that for certain people that is the case, but for me specifically, it was a progressive thing, right? Is that you get to the point where you just don't want to feel, or you want to drink as much as you can. There's not really enough available to get what you need. That's me identifying as an alcoholic. So I just need to call that out.
How did you get sober? What was your recovery like? How did you get there?
Well, I stopped.
Just cold turkey?
Yeah. But I had some friends who introduced me to AA. 12-step. And that's something that I had looked into earlier and had attended meetings in in my 20s, but I thought, you could attend meetings and then kind of casually drink and everything would be fine. And of course, that's kind of, that progressed. So I was like,
so you were going to meetings and drinking. I love it.
Well, not initially.
Okay.
I was going to meetings, and then about a few months in, this was in my early 20s, I was like, I don't think I need meetings. I'm just going to drink like a normal person, and that should be fine. And I clinged on to that notion for another 9 or 10 years. But
20s is young. I mean, that's young to quit. And even in my 20s, when I knew my drinking was problematic, I was like, I'm not there yet. Especially till I turned 40, right? How do you do 40 without drinking? But I didn't make it there. I quit when I was 36. So how old were you when you quit?
I was 33.
Good for you.
And the challenge for me was, I thought, you stop drinking and, whatever fun you had, whatever life you thought you had is over. And then it's some sort of, some kind of Puritan lifestyle moving forward. And so, but that was a way of thinking that permeated, a lot of my thinking around drinking and using other substances and the like. And the thing that was profound for me is that when I stopped drinking, it turned out that it was actually more fun. I could actually engage with people in more meaningful ways. I could actually have genuine conversations, have better connections, have more fun when I'm out, have more fun traveling. And my alcoholic thinking prevented me from enjoying myself sober when I was actively drinking because of the dysregulation, because I would feel shitty when I wasn't drinking.
Right.
Because either I was going through, psychological and physical withdrawal. um, because, I didn't like going more than a few days without a drink. And, after 2 or 3 days, I would think to myself, oh, wow, this is the longest that I've gone in X amount of time. There wasn't, I think for about 8 or 9 years, I didn't go more than 3 days without drinking.
Well, 3 days is a long time for somebody like us. I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
Well, so you did I'm just amazed that you didn't do treatment. Did you do detox? You didn't do detox. You just went straight to AA and never looked back. Do you still go?
In my 30s. Yeah. This time. Yeah. When I decided to stop drinking, I didn't, well, no, that's not true. I slipped up in about a year into drinking, not drinking, excuse me. I slipped up about a year, and then from there kind of understood that I didn't like going back to counting days. It's just nice to kind of have a lifestyle where alcohol is not a part of it.
Yep.
And in terms of your question of whether I'd been to treatment or I had earlier on, but it wasn't alcohol related.
Gotcha. Okay.
But when I say earlier on, I mean in my 20s.
Okay.
But the thing for me was I was just so down and out and feeling dejected and just generally awful that I wanted to change how I was feeling every day, because it was just the worst.
Yeah. So AA has done good for you. You've been going. How do you feel, just because as a company we are very much about, it doesn't matter how you get there, right? Or it doesn't even matter what your sobriety looks like or what your recovery looks like. It could be totally different than abstinence only. How do you feel about that? Like medically assisted treatment, that kind of thing.
Whatever path people take to get them to a state of feeling balanced and happy is a path that I would endorse. The thing is that there are modalities that can lead to other habits, and ways of thinking, isolation, resentment, and the like, that I worry about for people, because, there's the term just being dry. And if you're not active in your recovery, it can lead to some secondary issues that lead people to being sober and miserable. Right.
I agree. Yeah. I think the 12 steps, or I don't think it's for everybody, but for me, it helps me remember how bad it was, where I came from. But the most important thing, and you always talk about this, is to be there when someone else needs us, and, always be there to either help or tell our story or whatever. That helps me be spiritually fit on a regular basis.
Yeah. There is this spiritual fitness component. That is something that's very important to me, but I don't disagree with you. I don't think Alcoholics Anonymous is for everybody. I think that is extremely effective for people who commit to it. And the idea that you're treating the underlying symptoms that led to you drinking in the first place and continuing to drink, that's very compelling and transformational for me. Because it's not like there is some kind of immaculate situation. I mean, yes, I am predisposed. It runs in my family for many generations, as far back as it's recorded, that it's just like I come from a long line of successful, productive, active, wonderful, brilliant, lovely alcoholics. It's just It's
Yeah.
just what it is. And for me, I took that drink for the first time, and it felt right.
Yeah.
It turns out that I have some imbalances, say, with my neurotransmitter environment and the like, that leads me to feeling a certain way when I'm not taking care of myself, meaning I'm not getting the right nutrition, not exercising, building up endorphins, when I'm, my GABA system, my catecholamine system, meaning dopamine, epinephrine, norepinephrine, when those are all out of whack, I feel crappy. And I thought alcohol was an instant solution for me. It just so happens that it led to further deficiencies. So I'm predisposed to drinking, to taking to drinking, because of my mind and my body's makeup. But there's stuff like trauma, there's stuff like lived experience that needed to be dealt with from a symptomatic perspective prior to actually going into, the, whether you call it genetic or historical perspective. So,
I've never met anybody in AA that says that a lot of people say, well, I was from this great family and I was from this great, and I just started drinking. And if you dig deep enough, there is a, I don't know what, it's not spiritual, but there's something in there that is not regulated or addressed, or I feel like, people pick up the glass of wine and go to a cocktail party and it's for social reasons, and they could put it on a table and forget about it. I would never do that. I would have it in my hand the whole time.
Why would anyone do that?
I know. Forget, like, where is my glass of wine? I don't know. I could never do that. But I feel like that's why we too are so empathetic, because I feel like all of our neurons, everything's just wide open, alive. And then when we take the alcohol away, we don't have something like AA or therapy or something to replace all that. I just remember feeling, like just so raw when I quit drinking. And I didn't know if I would have friends. Like you said, I didn't know whether I'd have fun. And I mean, if anybody's listening, life is so cool with with your eyes wide open and you're clear headed. And I don't know. It's just, it's a really fun journey. It really is.
Yeah. Well, the experience that you're talking about, feeling raw and the like, that's when I refer to feeling dry. That's what that is. When I'm feeling dry, it's generally when I'm not actively participating in the community, 12-step and other things. Yep. I'm pissed off. I'm resentful. Yep. I don't want to be around people. I want to medicate in other ways, meaning eat too much, watch too much TV, eat sugar, just doing all this stuff that's not particularly good for me at all. But then, it's interesting because you bring up the point, you hear these stories, some people had just a normal life and then they started drinking and they started to understand they were alcoholic. There is an interesting circumstance in which you have kind of nascent alcoholism for people that might have been nipped early on in previous generations, whether it involves family members, parents, grandparents who decided to stop drinking or decided as a tradition to not drink, or like whether it involves embracing religion or some type of circumstance. And then with a child or the like, suddenly they're exposed to alcohol and it suddenly was like, oh my God, I didn't know that this existed.
Yeah.
And it's just, it goes from 0 to 100 really quickly, right?
What was the word you used? Nascent? Alcoholism?
Nascent. 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 Nascent.
I've never heard of that. That's great. I love learning new things like that. That probably happens more, my husband and I don't drink. So our third child is being brought up with no alcohol in the house. we were talking about how some of his friends, he's going into ninth grade, might be drinking at some point. He's like, no, how would they get it? How in the world would they get it? They're not 21. And I said, their parents' cabinets. He goes, oh, because we've never had it in our house. So he doesn't know.
Right.
He didn't even think about that.
This brings up interesting consideration, because for people who never grew up around alcohol, right?
Yeah.
And that was me for most of my life. Until
really?
Okay. Yeah. My dad didn't drink for the vast majority of my life. And my mother doesn't drink.
Okay.
And she did, but she stopped. And, it's interesting because then I didn't grow up around alcohol. It was not the type of thing. I mean, I did, but not in like an everyday scenario or environment. And so then I get exposed to it and I'm like, oh, wow, this is awesome. And suddenly I can be the life of the party. And I don't have that same type of anxiety. And, oh, wow, there's a reason why, people in my family stop drinking.
Yeah, it's a little too much fun.
There's that, and there's just all these other issues associated with it. And for me, when there was the AA component of my recovery, right? So I call that the community oriented component. There is a trauma oriented component of my recovery, which 12-step can cover some of, but therapy, engaging in that level was very important for me initially. It still is important for me, but initially it was very important. And then coinciding with all of that, though, there was an imbalance. My nutritional imbalance, but also my neuroendocrine environment, the relationship of my body's hormones with my body's brain was all out of whack.
How did you find that out? A regular doctor or a therapist?
Well, when I stopped drinking, I was experiencing all this stress and was really anxious and really wanted to drink to get rid of that anxiety. And that's part of why I slipped up, is because I just wanted that anxiety to go away.
Right.
And then I started doing some reading. There's a great woman, her name's Julia Ross. She wrote a book called The Mood Cure, which I'd highly recommend.
Okay.
It's about balancing the body's neuroendocrine environment. But when I started going deeper and looking into things further, I realized, oh, wow, there's a collection of neurotransmitters that make up my body's neuroendocrine system and my neurological environment that need to be balanced, right?
Uh-huh.
You need to have the appropriate amount of serotonin in your system. You need to have the appropriate amount of dopamine in your system. You need to manage your GABA system. And in my case, I did not have enough GABA in my system, so I was feeling very overwhelmed often. I had low serotonin, so I needed to find ways to generate serotonin. I had an excess of dopamine, especially when I was drinking. I needed to find ways to manage dopamine in my system. Meaning, find ways to seek pleasure in a healthy manner, not bombard your system with pleasure seeking, things like that.
Do you take supplements?
And so I started a whole company around it.
I know, Pam, but is it more than chews then? I want to talk about that.
So we started with our first product, which is the original Mood Chew. It's a GABA, L-theanine, and rhodiola product. GABA and L-theanine are amino acids. Rhodiola is an adaptogen. But we're expanding actually into a nutritional psychiatry system. So,
all right. What is that?
So what that looks like is a form of supplementation that enables your body to get all the ingredients it needs to manage its neurotransmitter environment. So So yeah, it's a protocol that enables people to feel balanced and like their best selves, essentially.
Okay. Tell our listeners about PYM and how PYM and how it came about, and what you just kind of told how it came about, but what you have, the new company you formed, and you just pulled in a CEO.
See, a chief medical officer. I'm the CEO.
You're the CEO. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Raghu. Dr. Raghu Appasani. He's a research psychiatrist and neuroscientist who's focused a lot on addiction research. And we're both very passionate about mental health advocacy. And then coinciding with that, we started to understand that there was not enough awareness around natural means to manage mental health. And prior to going along the path of pharmaceutical medication, there's a number of opportunities and interventions, protocols that can balance people out before they need more intense, potentially numbing experiences or addictive experiences. So I'd known Raghu for a year. We've been working together for about a year, but it became clear that we needed to recruit him to really level up what we were doing. PYM itself started because I was having a really tough time after I stopped drinking, managing my stress and anxiety. And my wife, who's also a co-founder in my company, her name's Olivia June, introduced me to amino acid formulations as a way of managing anxiety and stress. And I started reading some research around it, and it became very clear to me that there's this opportunity to balance my body's neurotransmitter environment. So I felt okay getting up in the morning and just going about the day without feeling like I was on edge and feeling overwhelmed and smoking cigarettes and, drinking too much caffeine and doing all these different things. And when I realized that I could balance my body system, I didn't need other things. I still drink caffeine. I like coffee, but I was able to stop smoking and do all these different things based upon getting my body's neurotransmitter system in place, right? Or balancing it so that I could feel clear and focused and not feeling so anxious where it was challenging to just even get out of the house, right? And so we realized there's an opportunity to start a company that stood for breaking down the stigma associated with mental health. Fantastic. While providing natural support solutions that were non-addictive, that enable people to feel clear, feel balanced, and feel like their best selves without feeling overwhelmed or stressed or anxious, and ideally feeling happy. And so the products that we initially created focus on the GABA system, which stands for gamma amino butyric acid, and it helps manages feelings of overwhelm and the like. But we'll be expanding into products that support the serotonin system, dopamine, epinephrine, norepinephrine, otherwise known as adrenaline, thyroid management, all these things that contribute to how you feel throughout the day. And ideally, if your neurotransmitter environment is appropriately balanced, then you're able to go about and not do things like self-medicate, right? And so that's why I
have less dopamine than I need. I have less serotonin. I supplement that. And then I also have low thyroid. So if you could, I take all these different medications. God, if you could put that into something natural that I could put in my body that was non-addictive. Also sleep. Zach, do you have a hard time sleeping? I know I listened to a podcast, you had insomnia as a child. How do you sleep at night? Do you take a supplement? Are y'all going to come out with a sleeping supplement possibly?
It's on our roadmap, but we're not going to be launching it next.
Okay. All right. I need help with all those areas: sleep, stress, anxiety, all that. So no pressure, but create a whole line of stuff for all of us.
Yeah. Well, I would like to help you with that.
Well, I'm going to be ordering more of your chews and looking forward to see what else y'all have coming out. And then briefly, can you talk a little bit about Bring Change to Mind, the other nonprofit you're on the board of, and what are you guys doing?
Sure. Well, I work with Bring Change to Mind, which is a nonprofit focused on providing mental health supporting programming and programs at high schools throughout the United States, high schools throughout the United States. And we work, I'm on the board of that organization, and I work with them closely around expanding their presence in schools and also developing anti-stigma campaigns.
Fantastic.
Focused on, anti-stigma campaigns focused on breaking down the stigma associated with mental health. And I also work with several other mental health organizations like Project Healthy Minds, which focuses on developing digital resources for mental health support, in addition to Inseparable, which is a mental health advocacy and policy organization, and also United for Global Mental Health, which is a global mental health advocacy and policy organization. So, I work with a lot of those organizations primarily around strategy and advocacy in terms of generating awareness and raising potential development funds for the organizations, but also, helping drive people, peers, advocates, educators to the cause. This is part of what I'm about. It's that service brings me joy and happiness.
Well, with that, I don't want to take much more of your time. I just want to say that, you're young, you're handsome, you have a famous last name. You don't have to do any of this, but you're doing it and you're going to save lives, because not only are you making it cool to talk about mental health, you're getting out there. You're not just an advocate, you're on the ground, you're creating things that can actually change people's mind. And you did not have to be on this podcast today. You don't have to do anything you do. I mean, come on, but you do it. And so thank you so much for being on our podcast today and for everything you do. And I'll keep up with you on the internet and see what you have going on with your new company. And I just wish you the best of luck. And I'm so grateful for you coming on today. Is there anything you'd like to end with or tell our listeners?
Nope. Just, I appreciate you, Elizabeth, and congratulations for all of the sobriety that you have, and
Thanks.
for the message that you broadcast, and just thanks for having me. It's important to be having this conversation, and I appreciate everything you do. So thank you.
Thank you, Zach. And you sound like you have a cold, so go get well.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm getting over a cold.
Okay, good. All right. Well, take care, and thank you for spending some time with us.
Thank you.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye.